According to Peter King, there is a rumor floating around that the Pittsburgh Steelers are interested in trading up for Jalen Carter. And really, you just don't want to overthink it. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. And today, we're talking about Jalen Carter and the rumor that the Pittsburgh Steelers are ready to trade up. So according to Peter King, there is a word floating around, some thoughts and beliefs that the Pittsburgh Steelers are ready to strike a deal with the Chicago Bears to move up to pick 9 if Jalen Carter slides. The first thought there is, well, that answers question 1, which was who were they ready to trade up for? When the Chicago Bears report came out and everybody surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers or a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers immediately started asking the same question. Who would the Pittsburgh Steelers trade up to 9 for? Are they going after Christian Gonzalez? Are they looking for Devin Witherspoon? Is it Paris Johnson Jr. or Broderick Jones or Peter Skoronski? Or are they looking to make a splash in a name like Lucas Van Ness? Well, now we know. It's Jalen Carter, Georgia Bulldog, a guy that at one point was considered the best player in the draft. And today, in some eyes, including the eyes of some on this channel, the guys over at Steelers Draft Talk, Derek Bell and Nick Martin, have both said and have a general consensus that Jalen Carter is head and shoulders above the rest of this draft class in almost all aspects. And the worries and the concerns about Jalen Carter having on-field issues, well, that's a no. That's non-belief, and that's something that I think is overblown, and you should watch the tape if you feel the same way. Jalen Carter does have his off-the-field issues. The incident that happened earlier this year where he pleaded no contest to racing and reckless driving in a race or an incident, I would say, that led to the death of a teammate and a former Georgia staffer. Nothing that you want to overlook. And then on top of that, to show up at your pro day 9 pounds heavier than you were the week before at the NFL Combine, to not be able to finish drills and have a really poor performance, it's not going to strike NFL teams in a positive light. And I'm sure that the reports and the claims that teams are removing Jalen Carter from their draft board is true. I've actually heard at least one team that has said and has said for a while now that they are not going to pursue Jalen Carter with their top 10 pick. Well, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's not the case. You don't overthink this stuff. You look at it at a different light. You look at it and say, well, okay, if the Chicago Bears don't want to handle that and don't want to take that risk, if the Detroit Lions don't want to take that risk, if the Seattle Seahawks don't want to take that risk, if all these teams don't want to take that risk, who's going to? Because at some points you have to look at it and say, well, on the field production, physical ability, physical traits, and just physicality as a whole, your entire body and frame has to at least get you drafted somewhere in the first round, because you can't be as good as Jalen Carter is and slide into the second. That just doesn't happen. You don't go from the top player in the draft, almost by everybody unanimously, to a second round pick. So teams are going to have to go get him. Somebody's going to draft him. And the Pittsburgh Steelers know that's not going to happen at 17. They fully understand that if they want Jalen Carter, they got to make a move for Jalen Carter. And they're ready to make one at 9, apparently. And for those who are concerned, for those of you who look at this and hear these rumors and get worried about Jalen Carter's issues and Jalen Carter's personality and, oh, well, you don't want another Antonio Brown. You don't want another this. You don't want another that. You don't want another Chase Claypool. You don't have to worry, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are different. They've always been different. They've had their characters, and those characters shine sometimes, but not always in the light that they do in Pittsburgh. I mean, Antonio Brown is the most extreme example, but it's the most accurate example as well. The fact that Antonio Brown literally went off the deep end the second he left the Pittsburgh Steelers organization shows you exactly how much Mike Tomlin and this organization, this franchise, this front office, this roster, and this locker room can control anyone and keep that attitude, that personality issue, the character concerns to a minimum. Mike Tomlin is the perfect coach. Peter King addresses that. That's exactly what he says. There is no better fit in the NFL draft for Jalen Carter than Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's true. If you're going to go anywhere in the NFL and you're going to hope to grow into the person that you want to grow into, Mike Tomlin leading the way is exactly what you're looking for. Then there's the questions about, oh, well, why would you trade up for a position that you already have? Why would you go get somebody to go replace Cam Hayward when Cam Hayward's still Cam Hayward, or Larry Ogunjobi just signed a 3-year deal? I get that. That is a valid argument. That one right there makes a lot of sense for everybody else in the draft. All other players, every single one of them, except for Jalen Carter, because Jalen Carter is the top player in this draft. And if Aaron Donald slid down draft boards and was viewed as Aaron Donald today, but had character concerns, had off the field issues, and the Pittsburgh Steelers sat here in the same position, they'd go after Aaron Donald. And every other team would go after Aaron Donald. And you'd look at it and say, yeah, that's cool, but it's Aaron Donald. Doesn't matter who you are or who you have on the roster. It's Aaron Donald. And I'm not saying Jalen Carter is the next Aaron Donald, and I'm not saying he's the greatest defensive lineman to ever play or any of this. I'm saying that Jalen Carter right now is viewed as the best player in the draft and should be viewed as the best player in the draft. I don't care what your thoughts are on Will Anderson or Bryce Young or whoever. Jalen Carter, if you watch the film, tops all of them. And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you could find a role for this guy right now and in the future. That's why you don't overthink it. That's why you come into this scenario and you come into this NFL draft and you don't overthink anything. You look at it as simple as can be. In 2023, what would Jalen Carter's role be? Well, that's easy. In 2023, Jalen Carter's role would be the starting nose tackle, which I know is not his natural position, but he'd play starting nose tackle, fill a Javon Hargrave type situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then also play all 3 interior line positions. He'd play behind Cam Hayward and replace him. He'd play behind Larry Ogunjobi and replace him. He would work his way through all 3 positions while also filling the Steelers' defensive line. And if you're telling me that in 2023, trading up to pick 9 is not worth having TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, and Jalen Carter as your starting defensive line, come on. You're not paying attention enough. That is the best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. And then moving forward, I get it. Cam Hayward is the defier of time. That guy is hopefully going to play forever. And I would love Cam to play forever. I think he's a great dude. I think he's the best personality in the locker room. He's a genuine player. He's a true leader. He is the captain that the Pittsburgh Steelers have needed for a long time and have had for a long time. And there's nothing that says this guy's slowing down anytime soon, because his on-the-field play continues to show us, dude, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're Cam Hayward. But eventually, Father Time catches everybody. And eventually, everybody's NFL career comes to an end. Cam Hayward's included. So Jalen Carter just simply takes a step over. He moves into Cam Hayward's spot. He plays defensive tackle. The Steelers now have another great defensive tackle to replace their hopefully future Hall of Famer. Again, best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to look for a youth movement, and the Pittsburgh Steelers seemingly are, they've been looking for guys to come in here and add depth and learn behind guys like Cam Hayward. And before last season, they didn't know who it was. They would hope it'd be Stephon Tuitt, but then it turned into Larry Ogunjobi. But that's what they're doing with names like Isaiah Loudermilk and DeMarvin Leal and hopefully, Braden Fehoko and Armon Watts and these younger guys who could come in here and play a role and develop into the next generation of the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line. The best way to top that off is Jalen Carter. The best way to top that off, and will remain the best way to top that off, is Jalen Carter. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't have to overthink this. If they want the best player in the draft, if they want the best player available at no matter what pick it is, if you want the best player available, if you want to make a splash, if you want to trade up and actually make that trade significant and not take a shot, because Devin Bush, yes, there was a lot of hype around Devin Bush, but neither him nor Devin White turned into what the NFL draft hoped they would turn into. With Jalen Carter, he is not a Devin Bush. This isn't he's really good. Don't get me wrong. No, he's like really, really good. Jalen Carter is a guy that if you watch the film and just take a couple of minutes to look at what this guy is capable of doing and the motor that he runs with, you will immediately notice that this dude is not your average football player. He is not your, oh, well, he's very good, but no, he's just very good. The Pittsburgh Steelers want to make a splash, want to make a meaningful move, want to solidify a trade and say, hey, well, we're guaranteed to get something out of this. Jalen Carter's the guy. It's very easy. If the Steelers are really serious about moving up to 9 and they're really thinking about trading for Jalen Carter and they want their guy in number 88 out of Georgia, you just don't overthink it. All Steelers Talk has officially launched their own clothing brand, Black and Gold Apparel, now available on bonfire.com or at the shop tab at our YouTube page. Your new favorite place for Steelers t-shirts, sweatshirts, and crew necks, now out, now available in multiple designs, including some of my favorites, Kenny Comeback, Mute, and Kenny DeGeorge. Check them all out at bonfire.com or on the shop tab at our YouTube page.